What's up, Wildcats? Mr. Waka coming at you. We're going to do a little more reading from The Alchemist tonight. We left off with the boys doing a good job working with the glass merchant and the crystal merchant, the same guy. But it looks like he's given up his dreams of going to Egypt and finding the pyramids, so that's where we're at. 2 more months passed, and the shelf brought many customers into the crystal shop. The boy estimated that if he worked for 6 more months, he could return to Spain and buy 60 sheep and another 60, and yet another 60. In less than a year, he would have doubled his flock, and he'd be able to do business with the Arabs because he was now able to speak their strange language. Since that morning in the marketplace, he had never again made use of Urim or Thummim, because Egypt was now just a distant dream for him as Mecca was for the merchant. Anyway, the boy had become happy in his work and thought all the time about the day when he would disembark at Tarifa as a winner. You must always know what it is that you want, the old king had said. The boy knew and was now working towards it. Maybe it was his treasure to have wound up in that strange land, to met a thief, and to double the size of his flock without spending a cent. He was proud of himself. He had learned some important things, like how to deal in crystal, about the language without words, and about omens. One afternoon, he had seen a man at the top of a hill complaining that it was impossible to find a decent place to get something to drink after such a climb. The boy, accustomed to recognizing omens, spoke to the merchant. Let's sell tea to the people who climb up the hill here. But a lot of places sell tea around here, said the merchant. But we could sell tea in crystal glasses. The people will be able to enjoy the tea and want to buy the glasses. I've been told that beauty is the great seducer of men. The merchant didn't respond, but that afternoon, after saying his prayers and closing his shop, he invited the boy to sit with him and share his hookah, that strange pipe used by the Arabs. What is it that you're looking for? Asked the old merchant. I've already told you I need to buy my sheep back, so I have to earn money to do so. The merchant put some new coals in the hookah and inhaled deeply. I've had this shop for 30 years. I know a good crystal from a bad one, and everything else there is to know about crystal. I know its dimensions and how it behaves. If we serve tea in the crystal, the shop is going to expand, and then I'll have to change my way of life. Well, isn't that good? But I'm already used to things the way they are. Before you came, I was thinking about how much time I had wasted in the same place, while my friends had moved on and either went bankrupt or did better than they had before. It made me very depressed. Now, I can see that it hasn't been so bad. The shop is exactly the size I always wanted it to be. I don't want to change anything because I don't know how to deal with change. I'm used to the way I am. The boy didn't know what to say. The old man continued. You have been a real blessing to me. Today, I understand something I didn't see before. Every blessing ignored becomes a curse. I don't want anything else in life, but you are forcing me to look at wealth and at new horizons I've never known. Now that I've seen them, and now that I see how immense my possibilities are, I'm going to feel worse than I did before you arrived, because I know the things I should be able to accomplish, and I don't want to do so. It's good to refrain from saying anything to the baker in Tarifa, thought the boy to himself. They went on smoking the pipe for a while as the sun began to set. They were conversing in Arabic, and the boy was proud of himself for being able to do so. There had been a time when he thought that his sheep could teach him everything he needed to know about the world, but they had never taught him Arabic. There are probably other things in the world that the sheep can teach me, the boy thought as he regarded the old merchant. All they ever really do, is look for food and water, and maybe it wasn't that they were teaching me, but that I was learning from them. Maktub, the merchant finally said. What does that mean? You would have been born an Arab to understand. You'd have to be born an Arab to understand, he answered, but in your language it would be something like, it is written. And as he smothered the coals in the hookah, he told the boy that he could begin to sell tea in the crystal glasses. Sometimes there's just no way to hold back a river. The men climbed the hill, and they were tired when they reached the top. But there they saw the crystal shop that offered refreshing mint tea. They went in to drink the tea, which was served in beautiful crystal glasses. My wife never thought of this, said one, and he bought some crystal. He was entertaining guests that night, and the guests would be impressed by the beauty of the glassware. The other man remarked that tea was always more delicious when it was served in crystal because the aroma was retained. The third said that it was tradition in the Orient to use crystal glass or tea because it had magical powers. Before long, the news spread, and a great many people began to climb the hill to see the shop that was doing something new in a trade that was so old. Other shops had opened that served tea and crystal, but they weren't at the top of the hill, and they had little business. Eventually, the merchant had to hire 2 more employees. He began to import enormous quantities of tea along with crystal, and his shop was sought out by men and women with a thirst for new things. And in that way, the months had passed. The boy awoke before dawn. It had been 11 months and 9 days since he had first set foot on the African continent. He dressed in his Arabian clothing of white linen, bought especially for this day. He put on his headcloth in place and secured it with a ring made of camel skin. Wearing his new sandals, he descended the stairs silently. The city was still sleeping. He prepared himself a sandwich and drank some hot tea from the crystal glass. Then he sat in the sun-filled doorway. He smoked in silence, thinking of nothing and listening to the sound of the wind that brought the scent of the desert. When he had finished, he reached into his pockets and sat there for a few moments, regarding what he had withdrawn. It was a bundle of money, enough to buy himself 120 sheep, a return ticket, and a license to import products from Africa into his own country. He waited patiently for the merchant to awaken and open the shop. Then the 2 of them went off to have some more tea. "I'm leaving today," said the boy. "I have the money, and I need to buy my sheep, and you have the money you need to go to Mecca." The old man said nothing. "Will you give me your blessing?" the boy said. "You have helped me." The man continued to prepare his tea, saying nothing. Then he turned to the boy. "I am so proud of you. You brought a new feeling to my crystal shop. But you know that I'm not going to go to Mecca, just as you know that you're not going to buy your sheep." "Who told you that?" the boy asked, startled. Maktub, said the old crystal merchant, and he gave the boy his blessing. The boy went to his room and packed his belongings. They filled 3 sacks. As he was leaving, he saw in the corner of the room his old shepherd's pouch. It was bunched up, and he'd hardly thought of it for a long time. As he took out his jacket out of the pouch, thinking to give it to someone on the street, the 2 stones fell to the floor, Urim and Thummim. It made the boy think of the old king, and it startled him to realize how long it had been since he had thought of him. For nearly a year, he had been working incessantly, thinking only of putting aside enough money so that he could return to Spain with pride. "Never stop dreaming," the old king had said. "Follow the omens." The boy picked up the 2 stones and once again had the strange sensation the old king was nearby. He'd worked hard for a year, and the omens were that it was time to go. "I'm going to go back to doing just what I did before," the boy thought, "even though the sheep didn't teach me to speak Arabic." But the sheep had taught him something even more important. There was a language in the world that everyone understood, a language the boy had used throughout the time he was trying to improve things at the shop. It was a language of enthusiasm, of things accomplished with love and purpose, and as part of a search for something believed in and desired. Tangier was no longer a strange city, and he felt that just as he had conquered this place, he could conquer the world. "When you really want something, all the universe conspires to help you achieve it," the old king had said. But the old king hadn't said anything about being robbed, or about the endless deserts, or about people who know what their dreams are but don't want to realize them. The old king hadn't told him that the pyramids were just a pile of stones, or that anyone could build one in his backyard, and he'd forgotten to mention that when you have enough money to buy a flock larger than one you had before, you should buy it. The boy picked up his pouch and put it on with his other things. He went down the stairs and found the merchant waiting on a foreign couple, while 2 other customers walked about the shop drinking tea from crystal glasses. It was more activity than usual for this time of the morning. From where he stood, he saw for the first time the old merchant's hair was very much like the hair of the old king. He remembered the smile of the candy seller on his first day in Tangier, when he had nothing to eat and nowhere to go. That smile had also been like the old king's smile. It's almost as if he had been there and left his mark, he thought. And none of these people had ever met the old king. On the other hand, he said there has always appeared to be those to help He said that he always appeared to help those who were trying to realize their personal legends. He left without saying goodbye to the crystal merchant. He didn't want to cry with the other people in there. He was going to miss the place and all the good things he'd learned. He was more confident in himself, though, and he felt as though he'd conquer the world. But I'm going back to the fields I know, to take care of my flock again, he said to himself with certainty. But he was no longer happy with that decision. He'd worked for an entire year to make the dream come true, and that dream, minute by minute, was becoming less important. Maybe because that wasn't really his dream. Who knows? Maybe it's better to be like the crystal merchant, never to go to Mecca, and just to go through life wanting to do so, he thought, again trying to convince himself. But as he held Urim and Thummim in his hand, they had transmitted to him the strength and will of the old king. My cat's meowing. The thief wasn't there. Where am I? By coincidence, or maybe by omen, the boy thought, he came to the bar he'd entered on his first day. The thief wasn't there, and the owner brought him a cup of tea. I can always go back to being a shepherd, the boy thought. I learned how to take care of sheep, and I haven't forgotten how that's done. But maybe I'll never have another chance to get to the pyramids in Egypt. The old man wore a breastplate of gold, and he knew about my past. He really was a king, a wise king. The hills of Annalisa were only 2 hours away, but there was an entire desert between him and the pyramids. Yet the boy felt there was another way to regard his situation. He was actually 2 hours closer to his treasure. The fact that the 2 hours had stretched into a year did not matter. I know why I want to get back to my flock, he thought. I understand sheep. They're no longer a problem, and they can be good friends. On the other hand, I don't know if a desert can be my friend, and it's the desert that I have to go search for my treasure. If I don't find it, I can always go home. I finally have enough money and all I need and all the time I need. Why not? He suddenly felt tremendously happy. He could always go back to being a shepherd. He could always become a crystal salesman again. Maybe the world had other hidden treasures, but he had a dream, and he had met with a king. That doesn't happen very often. He was planning as he left the bar. He had remembered that one of the crystal merchant's suppliers transported his crystal by means of caravans that crossed the desert. He held Urim and Thummim in his hand. Because of those two stones, he was once again on his way to his treasure. I am always nearby when someone wants to realize their personal legend, the old king had said. What could it cost to go over to the supplier's warehouse and find out if the pyramids were really that far away? All right, we'll take a stop there. We're on page 65, about 100 pages left. We're moving forward on The Alchemist. Go Wildcats.